like, oh, it's because that is the center of change, is a common misconception. And that is a very Eurocentric and Anglophile way of framing change in terms of technology, in terms of social advancement and change and upheaval, because in terms of what we deem culturally valuable as opposed to culturally insignificant. And so that's why I find multicultural steampunk is what I do, because I'm not British in any sense of the word. I believe that, my family history and the history of the country that my family is from is equally valid, not only because of its intrinsic value of, the sense of family pride and self-identity, but also because of the ramifications of that history throughout the rest of the world. China, as a colony and its history had ramifications that did reach out to the present day, that reached out to my own life in a very significant way. And so when people talk about steampunk being focused only in Victorian England, only in Europe, they're completely almost erasing the fact that these were empires, and the ramifications of coming from a former colony and having that history still affect us today.
From specifically a writerly standpoint, so if we have any writers out there who are looking to write and get published in steampunk, that all the editors in New York are looking for steampunk that is not set in England. All of them. And so if you're writing a story that's set in England, your chances of selling it are really slim. If you just switch its setting to Bombay or to Hong Kong, to any empire country outside of England, then your chances of getting published have you've just doubled your chances. So that's my hot tip for the moment. But you better write it fast, because you never know when the steampunk bubble is going to collapse. So get it done in the next 3 months. So that's one of the things they're looking for. Editors are also looking for steampunk that deals with not the higher classes. So again, with the imported immigrant groups in London at the time. If you wanted to set a steampunk that had a multicultural hero or heroine, then that you have a better chance in that arena as well. So that's just my hot. So in other words, yes, editors are in fact looking for that. They're looking for stories in steampunk that are outside of the heartland.
And to mention some multicultural steampunk examples in writing, I also work in publishing. It's my day job. So that's how I'm very familiar with that call for works that are outside of Victorian England. To name some examples of authors who are doing multicultural steampunk, Amal Emotar, Shriyata Narayan, Nisi Shal. She made this famous proclamation on Tor.com is that I will write a steampunk novel that takes place in the Congo. And she's currently working on that right now. Karen Loachi, she wrote The Gaslight Dogs, which is it's steampunk fantasy, but it is set in it deals with native steampunk, which I find absolutely fascinating. And to move on to the online web world, Virtuoso is a great comic that I definitely recommend. It's set in steampunk Africa, where it's an African empire that has taken over this continent. And the big question of this comic is that what happens when an inventor, instead of going with empire standards, inventing guns, invents and distributes a printing press, and that changes their entire world. So there's definitely examples of multicultural steampunk that are out there, and that people are doing it. It's just a matter of that gaining traction. I do want to do another shout out for another project I think is really exciting, as an outside of England steampunk example. Who here knows Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yes.
For those who are unfamiliar, it's a fantastic American cartoon created by Nickelodeon, and I think it's probably the best animated series that came from America that I've seen in like the last 10 years. It's a fantasy world where people have the ability to manipulate the elements, and the whole mythology and base of the world is based on indigenous and Asian cultures, which is absolutely fantastic. And what makes me really excited about what they're doing with it now, the series has ended. They are doing another project called The Legend of Korra. And that is the same world 70 years later when, after they went through the process of industrialization. So they're literally creating their Asian indigenous steampunk world, and it's going to come out within the next year. And I'm absolutely really excited about it.
With a strong female protagonist.
Yeah, with a strong female protagonist.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
That's all I want. And it's a cartoon,
And it's
which means you get them when they're young.